I extend my warm greetings to all the delegates, faculty members, heads of institutions, members of the industry, and other guests present today. Before we begin the session formally, there's a short video that we would like to play. Thank you, sir. Before we start, I have a couple of important announcements to make. To have uninterrupted session, I would request all the delegates and participants to kindly switch off their video and mute their audio. All the participants are requested to post their questions related to the topic in the chat box given below, which will be answered at the end of the session. Thank you. Now, may I please invite our Director, Dr. K.N. Ganesh Babu, sir, to welcome our esteemed guest of honor. Over to you, sir.
Thank you, Nia. Architect Vidyadhar S. Vodayar, BIAC, MURP, FIIA, FITP, FIVA, Architect, Town Planner. Founder, Archplan, established in 1985, Architects, Town Planners and Infrastructure Development Consultants. Sir has graduated from UVCE with a first-class degree and ranking 5th in his batch in 1979. Masters in Urban and Regional Planning, MURP, from SPA, School of Planning and Architecture, New Delhi, in 1982. Professional memberships. Sir is a member, Council of Architecture, India. Fellow member, Indian Institute of Architects. Fellow, Institute of Town Planners, India. Associate member, Indian Institute of Interior Designers. Fellow member, Institute of Valuers, India. Member, Institute of Standard Engineers. Professional activities. Sir has been the chairman, Indian Institute of Architects, Karnataka chapter from 2012 to 2015, and prior to that, 2010 to 2012 also. Secretary, Institute of Town Planners, India, Karnataka chapter, 2000 to 2002. Member, Regional Chapter Building Committee, ITPI, New Delhi, 2001 to 2002. Member, Professional Standing Committee, ITPI, New Delhi. Member, Practicing Architects Association, Karnataka. Member, Institute of Standard Engineers, Bangalore section, Karnataka. Member, Council of School of Planning and Architecture, Vijayawada. Board of Governors, SJP, School of Architecture and Planning. Board of Governors in more than a dozen colleges in and around Bangalore. Member, Academic Curriculum Committee, Department of Architecture, Pestet University, 2017, 18 and 19. Member, Governing Council, member, Aditya Academy of Architecture and Design. Expert member, Staff Selection Committee member in more than a dozen colleges. Sir's profile runs into pages, so I have to cut short the number of colleges, so I'll just mention as a dozen colleges. Jury member in more than a dozen professional bodies. Member, Government of Karnataka constituted expert committee to prepare guidelines on use of glass in buildings. Member, Central Valuation Committee. Observer, appointed as observer for conduct of NATA in 2017. Inspection committee member appointed by Council of Architecture to inspect the various colleges, more than a dozen colleges. Member, advisory body for the International Conference on Architecture and Urban Planning, Between the Lines, in 2018 at Reva University. Examiner and jury member in more than a dozen colleges. Empaneled as architect, interior valuer and planner in various government and other bodies. Guest lecturer in more than a dozen colleges. Seminars, conference and publications also runs into pages to specify important ones. Preparation of master plans for small townships for 8 projects in Karnataka state, Uttar Pradesh, Tamil Nadu, Kerala, Pondicherry, and Bihar. Sir, presidency for various organizations like World Bank, aided and HAL, DRDO, Karnataka. Married to Srimati Gayatri Devi, an interior designer. Sir was blessed with son's name is Akhil Vodayar, PG Diploma in Urban Design, United Kingdom, and daughter, Mrs. Bhavana, software engineer settled in United. With this brief, I would like to welcome you, sir, and it is a pleasure having you on our forum today.
Thank you very much.
I now pass on the session to Neha to introduce the speaker. Over to you, Neha.
Thank you and welcome, Woodyard sir. It's an honor to have you with us. American poet W.H. Auden said, "Thousands have lived without love, not one without water. Once an abundant natural resource, water is becoming a more valuable commodity due to droughts and overuse. Architects and planners are fast becoming sensitive to interventions which reduce the impact of urbanization on natural water cycle. Water-sensitive urban planning is the need of the hour, and today we have with us Dr. Architect Sheetal Sharma, who strongly believes that this topic has to be brought out to an ever-expanding audience. A warm welcome to you, ma'am. Dr. Sheetal Sharma is an academic professional with background in architecture and urban planning. She has 20+ years of experience in independent architectural consultancy with more than 100 residential and commercial projects. She is currently as Principal in Architecture, LNCT University, Bhopal. She did her BArch with a gold medal from Amravati University and post-graduation in Urban Development Planning from MANIT in 2010, and also PhD in Environmental Planning from MANIT in 2015. She has chaired many international conferences and published more than 35 international and national papers with many book chapters. With around 6 medals in academics and numerous paper awards, the list of additional academic honors she has received are Educator Award by Shivraj Singh Chauhan, ex-Chief Minister of MP in 2019. Session Chair, 5th World Congress on Environmental Science held in 2019 in Toronto, Canada. Session Chair, UPPD Conference, Singapore in 2017. Session Chair, 18th International Conference on Urban Planning, Regional Development and Information Society in 2016 in Dubai. Session Chair, 19th International Conference on Applied Environmental Geology, Environmental System in 2017 in Dubai, where she also received the Best Paper Award. She is also the ACIC Coordinator, Atal Innovation Mission, Niti Aayog, Research Advisory Committee Member, LNCT University, Bhopal, NAC Coordinator, LNCT University, Bhopal, Board of Studies, Chair Member, LNCT University, Bhopal. With this, may I please invite Dr. Architect Sheetal Sharma to start her presentation. Welcome once again, ma'am. Over to you. And I request all the participants to please switch off their videos. Thank you, ma'am. Over to you. Ma'am, you're mute.
Am I audible?
Yes, yes.
So thank you, Neha, for the lovely introduction. It looks long, but for me, it is still small. I thank you, the Aditya Academy of Architecture and Design, first of all, for giving me this opportunity. I had been attending all your webinars, and it was a surprise when I got a call to be an expert speaker in this. So it was a pleasure for me. I also thank you, Ganesh sir, for giving me this chance, Siddharth sir, Senthil sir, and Neha madam for the background support and the technical team which is helping from the behind. I also thank the participants who may have attended many of the webinars for many of the known personalities. I am not that much famous, but I assure you that my presentation will bring some insight with you if you are the students of architecture or the practicing architects. I would not take much of your time. I will just give you a very basic introduction about what is water sensitivity in your architectural profession. I have added the planners also because architects are also associated with the planning ones. So I have taken planning also into consideration because ultimately architects are the part of the planners also, planning system, and we have to go through the planning process as others go. So it will be a very basic introduction and relation of your building, your soil, your land and water. So we would not take any climate into consideration or any other things into consideration. I will be trying to make it as simple as possible and as interactive as possible with the one who are attending. So I'm just sharing my screen. It will take 1 or 2 maybe minutes. So just bear with me. And for the next maybe 30 to 40 minutes, you will have to bear with me. Hope I don't take over long. Yeah, the presentation is being uploading. If you have any questions, you can ask me and I will try to answer it as simple as possible, because there are many students from first year also from my college, so it may be difficult for them to understand. But since we plan our buildings and architecture is now accustomed with many high-tech HVAC systems, acoustic systems, the ECBC norms, the new norms for the building bylaws, etc. are coming up, we are somewhere lacking behind the water sensitivity in our planning. Just a small introduction, I would like to say that you buy the land and then you construct the building. So that is, you are buying the land. And in some cases, we are also buying the water nowadays. So if you are buying the land and if you are buying the water also, I think some importance should be given to both of them rather than the built up area or the economical factors, which we get benefited from the construction and the building where it is located. So let us see what happens with this water sensitive planning. Everybody must be in home or in his building. सबको पता है, means everybody must be knowing the house and the open areas around your house. So just remember your own house and the open areas, because it will be asking a question from your side. I will be asking some questions. Be ready with the answers from your own house. So my questions will be very simple. Just type in the box. My screen is visible. Can you see my screen presentation? Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So, water sensitive urban planning by architects and planners. My major concern is our cities, the master plan, buildings, and the water. So, my first question to the audience, because all must be sleeping or must have just got up. My first question is water. What is water sensitive? If you can answer them in the chat box, what is water sensitive? I can give you the clue of Sensodyne toothpaste advertisement. If you can correlate this water sensitivity with the Sensodyne toothpaste ad. Anyone with the guesses? What is water sensitive? No guesses. So let me give you the answer. The careful use of water, yes. Anything that supports the natural working of the ecosystem. Whatever is supporting your ecosystem will be sensitive. That is, if you are using a better toothpaste, then you will have not that much of problem in your sensitive skins. So what is water cycle? In 4th or 5th standard, you must have read about it, or your small younger brothers or sisters may have been having this chapter. What is water cycle? Any clues for the water cycle? Remember the clouds, the earth shown in your geography book. So I can give you the answer. Evaporation. It starts with the evaporation, that is, the water from the ground gets evaporated. It forms the clouds get condensed, the sublimation procedure occurs, and we get the rainfall. The rainfall falls on the ground. From the ground, it goes to the various pathways, that is, part of the water will go in the ground, part of the water will flow on the ground, and again a part of the water will be evaporated. So my urban planning, if I see my urban planning, my urban issues, evaporation related with urban issue, yes, because as soon as I put the concrete on the road, as soon as I put the tiles in my house outside area, the evaporation will get affected. So first thing will be getting affected. Condensation, sublimation, precipitation will be natural cycle but affected because my evaporation got affected due to the urban issues. Then transpiration. If I am having a very smooth road, my bike will run very well, and so my water will also run very well. So a very smooth road or a very smooth paved surface will take the water very fast from the area. It will be good for you because the area will be dry as soon as possible, but it will be bad for the long terms. Then comes the runoff. As soon as 5 minutes of rainfall is there in nowadays in any city, we hear that the flash floods have occurred. So runoff is also an urban issue, and this all results into the final result, that is the infiltration, water going below the soil. How much can we affect to this 4 parts, 5 parts, 4 parts, sorry. How much, to what extent? Any guesses how much we have already affected these 4 parts in percentage? 10% or maybe 20% or maybe 35%. What should be the percentage that we have already affected these 4 natural processes, which in turn affects the water cycle, and which in turn again affects the water availability in your city? Okay, 80%. Yes, it is a good answer. So people are already knowledgeable in this group, so we can proceed with it. What changes these parameters? Evaporation, as I told, soil moisture will get affected, and the extreme temperatures will be responsible for this. Again, increasing temperatures are a part of the global warming, so we can't help it. Transpiration, the smooth surfaces or the rough surfaces or the vegetation will be having this. Runoff, yes, slope, if you're a hilly area or a plain area, your drainages, your barren land, again the vegetation will come. And majorly the land use and land cover will come into the action, that when I go for my land use and land cover, I just see that these 4 things are being affected. So my next question is, land use and land cover in planning in India is done by whom? In India, who does this land use and land cover planning? Architects or the planners? Architects don't do the land use land cover planning, but the development authorities. Any other question? Any other answer? A nice answer. Urban planners, good. Okay. So you know very much about the planning. Now, next question: where do we use this land use and land cover planning? Now, don't be the answer. Tell me the answer that we do the land use and land cover planning on land. That is obviously known. Where do we do the land use and land cover planning? This is a tricky question. If you can guess, it will be very good for me to continue with it. Okay, in conversation, in TCPO. Okay. Any other? Unplanned areas. Next, to detect the land change. Urban level projects. Now, I do my land use and land cover planning right from my single house, to right from my city, to right from my earth, to right from the small plot to the whole city and the whole country. So I use my land use and land cover planning on my land, and one thing I have added, it is on my soil. Maybe I am doing it as an architect, or maybe I am doing it as a villager or a farmer, but I am doing the land use land cover planning, though even I am not authorized for it, or even if I am not owner of the house. Being an architect, my first construction is based on the foundation which we go for the buildings, and it is the land. We dig the land, we go for the infrastructure, we go for the sewage lines, water supply lines, etc., and my foundations. So being an architect, I think you must be only concerned when the structure classes are being taken, that what is the soil capacity or what is the strength of the soil. But let us go something further from it. As for now, every architect and every owner who has a house on this earth has already affected the starting of 10 to 20 meters of the subsurface, that is the ground. Maybe it is having 2 layers, 3 layers, 4 layers, and there is a life below the ground. That is, the water is flowing, there are caterpillars, there are houses of many animals which live below the ground, and your foundations are continuously going below and below. If you see Burj Khalifa or any other building, the foundations have reached up to a greater depth, affecting the life below. So once you affect the life below, the life above is naturally going to change, because there is a Newton's law. Every action has a You can complete the answer in your mind. So we have already affected this 10 to 20 meters of layer throughout the earth, wherever land is available. Now, being an architect, have you ever seen that this table, any architect or any student who is having this table with him or her, I think you are doing a wonderful job, because land cover on a specific soil decides the further variations into the microclimate as well as the macroclimate, not for 5 years, but for the next 500 years of that specific house which you are constructing or which you will be constructing in the future. Like, there are 4 to 5 types of soil. You must be knowing it. Alluvial soil, it has a water carrying capacity of 70 to 80%, but in certain circumstances. Like, I can give you an example that you can be saved from the COVID-19 if you're having a good immunity system. But the person who is more than 75 years of age may not be able to survive that much, which 25 years old is expected to survive from the COVID-19. Same, alluvial soil has 70 to 80% of capacity under certain conditions. Sandstone, if it is having a loamy nature, then 80 to 90%. Means if 100 mm of water is falling on it, 90% it will save with it. Same, basalt, 70 to 75%. But sandstone, if it is loamy sand, then it is only 30 to 40%. That means this type of soil, if you are having in near future in your sites, you will have to be very careful about this soil. So why I'm using these terms, why this table is so much important for me? Because when I construct my house, I create pervious areas and the impervious areas as shown in the figure. My impervious area may have the water logging, or my impervious area may have a clean surface if I give some pervious nature to it. So this way I am responsible for this. But urban planning is still not using this parameter as a tool for land use land cover planning, though many square kilometers of land is converted every year for every city, for every master plan. Hundreds hectares or many hectares of land are being converted from the agriculture field to the various land uses, and we don't consider the basic necessity of the soil, though every master plan has the drawing of natural drainage, the hydrology map and the geology map, but I haven't seen the use of this geology in the master plan as well as the geology in your architectural projects. So now you know about the land and soil. If you know about it, we can go further. We will not be discussing any climate change areas because my presentation is very much concerned with the architect and his sites. So we'll not deviate from this part. We'll just see what is land and soil doing. Now just see the image and let me know how the architect is related to this image. And how many architects know what image is this? If you know the name of the image and how an architect is related with this image, then you will be understanding the further presentation very well. Any idea about the image? What is that image? What is it called? Okay, development plan. Any other? Master plan, good. Some planners are also there in this talk. So, yes, this is a master plan which is showing different yellow, red, orange colors, and it is basically called as the land use map. And the land use map is very much important because whenever you will take the site or you are an architect and you are doing any construction, you must be getting one land use certificate from the Town and Country Planning Department, which shows you that your land is residential, commercial, or public use or semi-public use or recreational. And as per the land use, the bylaws will be following with the land along with it. How much the building can be taken above, how much percentage of green area you have to leave. So these are different colors shown and you have to follow the building bylaws issued by the specific municipal corporation from your area. So if this far is clear, then we'll move this. Nowadays, we are having many of the guidelines available. The latest of being with the urban greening guidelines. These are the screenshots of the pages. It is a 448 pages guidelines which shows you how to make the water sensitive urban planning. But unfortunately, these chapters are not taken into the master plans. I have read at least 40 master plans, and only it is being said in the master plan that there should be the hydrogeological nature taken into consideration when you do for the planning. And how to do? The next slides you will come to know. So when I use these urban greening guidelines, I am told this national norms, it says 12 to 14% of the green area should be there in a small town. 18 to 20% of the area should be green in the medium towns. And for metropolitan cities, it is 20 to 25%. Now I don't know where have they taken this percentage from, but this percentage are being introduced. Now, what does the international norm says? The international norm says that there should be unpaved open space, undeveloped, that is into the very natural state. Desirable is 40 square meter per capita. So you just multiply the Indian population with 40 square meter, you will get the desirable green space for India. Or the average minimum should be 20 square meter per capita. We can do this calculation very easily. We have 130 crore, I think. WHO norms, it says minimum 9 square kilometer per habitat, that is per person, 9 square kilometer of area should be open. Now, if you are 4 members in the family, multiply it by 9 and you will get the green space which should be given in your own home. And you can just calculate whether you are having this criteria fulfilled or not. But just remember, it should be unpaved and open. Patrick Abercrombie, who designed the London city, he gave 1.262 hectares per 1,000 population. So this is not a new thing. We had been doing this in the planning of the cities earlier also. Now, so there are some distances, no problem. So green cover in cities. Now theory part is over. We'll now only switch over to the pictures. Let's see the green covers in the city. This is the Reggio, Italy. It is having only 1.9% of green space, and one is Ferrol in Spain, 46%. I have not written the names in the pictures. You have to identify which city is having which percentage of green. That's why I have not written the name. Next, green covers in the cities in the world. Now we come to the Spain, Cadiz, which is having 3 to 5 square kilometer per person. Identify the picture. And there is Leek, 300 square meters per person in Finland. Just identify the pictures. I will not tell you the answer. You have to identify by yourself. Got it? Got the answers? Let's move forward. Some very famous examples. California, only 4% of Lancaster city is green. Canberra, designed by Sir Walter Group, is 55% of the city area is green. Rogue, again 55%. And we come to the Tokyo. It is only less than 10% green as per the latest news. International norm says 9 to 10 square kilometer per person. Let's come to India now. Chennai people, it is 0.81 square kilometer per capita. So I think we should donate, or we should take the loan from Canberra or Baton to get the green areas, or we can exchange from Chandigarh also, because Noida is having 270 square kilometers of area per capita, because it is a very vast area and still undeveloped stage. Varanasi only 12 square kilometers. Bhopal, Chandigarh, Jaipur, Allahabad, they have just passed. These are the passing marks. They have more than 9 square kilometers per capita. But Bangalore, Amritsar, Dehradun, Kanpur, they are the failures. They are having very less than 9 square kilometers of area. Just look at the pictures of the city. Here I have wrote the names because it is very difficult for us to see which area is green. So Chandigarh, Bhopal, Kanpur and Bangalore. You can see the difference between the green, which I am talking about, and which you can view in the pictures. This is Lancaster, Tokyo, Rogue and Canberra. You can see the difference by the picture itself. These are the normal pictures taken from the internet, and by one glance only you can identify what I am talking about, why the green I am talking about. Another guidelines which is nowadays very famous, every presentation, every given by the students in my college, in another college, is the green and the blue architecture, or the green and the blue land use planning. What is this green and blue land use planning? Any ideas? Basic same thing, that we should go with the nature, we should go with the water cycle, and we should help the water cycle. But how much it is used, let us see. Find out the green city or the blue city or 10 square kilometer per capita in the picture. If anyone sees any single dot, please let me know. Any single dot in the picture above will give you a good round of applause. Anyone? No? So, next. Find out the green city, blue city, or 10 square kilometer per capita per area here. Anyone who can see any one of the two trees near the apartments? No. So these are the cities, very high-tech cities. Now see this. Everyone must be feeling. This is Manhattan, which is having a very large, almost a forest in the center of the city. So we are feeling good by looking into this. But this is not the way that you take all the immune boosters in the single day and you are safe from the COVID. So this is the example of the single booster taken by the public to avoid COVID. Now the green architecture. This is the planned one, left hand figure, and this is the actual figure, that is the reality. What is missing? Which guidelines are missing? Is the architect responsible for this type of things, or the owner is responsible, or you can say that the government is responsible? Everybody told that the developing authority is doing all this, but the developing authority is not coming to construct your house. It is only giving you the permission to construct your house on basis of some guidelines. So here I have introduced a new word, that is guidelines. So architects are responsible, developer is responsible, and the last option is money is responsible. I know everybody will agree that it is all the game of money that is playing into these buildings, but no, without using money and without the help of development authority also, the architects can do wonders. Let us see how. This is a very famous picture nowadays. I have taken from the internet only. We have guidelines to wear the mask. And since last 55 days, you must have seen many people wearing the mask in the very different ways. So is the WHO not doing its work properly? Or the Indian government has not given you the guidelines for wearing the mask? Yes, they have given. Then where is the problem? With the public, or with the spread of the knowledge, or with the concern of the public that let's see what happens. We have taken the immunity booster. So like this, there are guidelines for every and each and every act by the architect, by the planner. Guidelines are very good, though they also need some changes. But yes, at present, there are some guidelines which every architect and every planner is supposed to follow. But that is a bitter, you can say, truth between the development and the planning. That is, development is already running faster than the planning. And where we are missing is that the architects think that it is the job of the planner, it is the job of the development authority. The planner thinks that I have done my job, I have followed the guidelines, and I have done my duty very well. Developer thinks that yes, the plan is approved, I am doing the building construction very well, and I am not responsible for anything. So this way the cap moves from one round to another. So urbanization. This thinking leads us to some specific goal, that is, for 54% of the population, the built-up area in the world has increased by 149%, 145%. That is, our built-up area is more, 145% more than the required built-up area. And what is the reason behind it? We want separate bedrooms, we want a veranda, we want a jacuzzi, we want a terrace garden, we want everything. And there are slums also which are having only one room to stay for the 12 people. This inequality is there, but the one who can make this facility available, they are using more and more built up areas. And so Asia, if you see, I have circled it with a red color, the precipitation, evaporation and runoff, a very common figure which is available on the net says that Asia has 55% of the water running off and 45% of the evaporation. So that is, sorry, 45% of runoff and 55% of evaporation, because we have high temperatures near the equator. So these are the major things we have already affected. That is the evaporation and the runoff. These two factors we have already crossed. So what is the effect? Our recharge. You see the third table, the recharge now. In 1961 to 90, it was 45 to 50% for the earth. I'm not talking about any city. This is the global recharge. In 2000, it was 10 to 20 and 10 to 30% of the total rainfall. That is, if 100 mm of rainfall is falling, then 30 mm is going into the ground. In 2050, which is not very far, it will be minus 10 to minus 30. That means the COVID will be spread everywhere and your lungs won't be able to take the oxygen and you will be needing a ventilator. So this is the alarming situation where the earth will be needing a ventilator because its own water content will be in minus. And we architects are responsible for it. We cannot run by saying that we architects, we are only building the buildings. So this way we are changing the things. How? Now, as I told that there is a guideline for mass, there is a guideline for planning, there is a guideline for building bylaws. There is a chapter also for the students building bylaws, and there are town planning chapter in the 4th semester. So students, you can clearly correlate these guidelines with your planning and with the things which I am going to show. Now I am shifting to the practical application of these guidelines in my own city, in my own house, in my own colony. So this is, and because it is a judged one, it is a experimented one, that how these guidelines are being used by us. First, the only thing which I take into the consideration, the guideline is having 700 pages, but I only open this page. If I'm planning a colony, I just open this page. Okay, residential, I have to give 45%. Commercial, I can give this much. Open space, I will just see, oh, open space is only 10%. So I'm happy. I give my 10% of the total colony which I am planning, and I give it as an open space, and I try to reduce it to 9.8 to 9.9% also. Who comes and calculates the whole thing on plan? I will be showing it 10% as you do in the submissions, and the same thing we do in the town and country planning also. So I am concerned only about the land use percentage. Then when I go further, I see the percentage of open spaces to be kept in my colony, in my own house. So that is the last column which is being shown. That is, this much space should be the road. So I reduce the road, I give it to the buildings. I reduce the parks, I give it to the buildings, so that I can earn more and more things. So these are the things which I see that open area is my always neglected. Third, I see the setbacks. If my plot size is 40 by 60 feet or my 30 by 50 feet, I just see how much setback I have to keep and how much balcony I can project. So inch by inch, I am crossing the limits somewhere, making the plan as per the municipal norms, but on site, there is something different story going on. Everyone will agree with me on this point, that the plan submitted to the municipal corporation is something different, and the plan and the building existing on the site is something different. Why it happens? Because the land is costly. You have limited land, costly it is. You have more expectations, more areas required. India population is very big. Plus the social norms also, that we should have 5 rooms, 6 rooms, etc. So this takes us to many other things. So the marginal open spaces always excite us to convert them into built up whatever norms may be. Even I can write a garage for my bedroom in my municipal plans, and I will make a bedroom, I will not make a garage. So these are the things which happens. So somewhere I have started violating the guidelines by my own, without the owner's urge or something. I have started tackling with these guidelines and implementing on the actual site. What happens? See this colony, 10% of the garden is being kept. Just find out where is the 10%, and my rain is falling on these gardens, and where will the rain go away? I have taken 10% of the open space here. So technically I am right. Economically I am right. I am having all the plots east west facing, everything is there. Almost every house is having some or the other park. It is the best possible planning done by me, or maybe some architect, but the gardens are separated, you can see. Next, find out the green areas in this colony and find out the number of plots. Don't only concentrate on the green areas, but concentrate on the number of plots. Each plot may be having maybe 5 to 4 persons per house. So the household capacity, if I see how many persons will be living in this colony, how many gardens are there, how many open spaces there. Okay, in plan this is looking very good, but what happens in the actual areas? Now, there is a natural drainage going from this colony. There is one point where this area, where the water is asked to turn a 45 degrees turn. Is it possible for the running water or the storm water to take a sudden left or right turn? It is not possible, but the planners have managed to do the natural drainage planning as concrete drains or sewers, and making the water turn in the angle specified by the planner and not by the natural terms. If you have seen the rivers, they have a wavy kind of pathway, but here it is all customized and it is all geometrical. So do you think these types of green areas are following the guidelines? Answer is within you. We'll go further and we'll see what happens. So let's take an actual case study for the water sensitive planning and what we have done. I have taken my Bhopal city. I have taken some watersheds and some wards in this area. I have studied the guidelines of Bhopal. I have studied the rainfall pattern from 1974 to 2014, that is for the last 40 years. And this way I have taken all the built up area which is possible as per the guidelines. So these watersheds I divided into the 3 geological parts. The land use map was superimposed. The green areas were marked. The percentage was taken out, how much green area is there, how much residential area is there, how much lakes are coming, because Bhopal is known as the city of lakes. And this way I just did the calculation. These are my 3 geological patterns. That is, I am having the Deccan basalt, I am having the sandstone, and I am having the alluvial soil. Till now, there is no study done by the master plans that if some mall or my hospital is on some specific soil, what will be the result in the runoff and the recharge. No study is there for these types of things. So municipal guidelines though are being followed, but one important aspect which is being missed is that the immune system is being neglected while giving you the immunity booster. So I'm just correlating because this is the latest topic, COVID. So geology and built up area, when studied on the actual watersheds, gave me some very interesting results. Being an architect and planner, I was really amazed, and again I did so many calculations and simulations using the stormwater management model approved by the EPA and the National Institute of Hydrology. I did the simulations for the last 40 years of built up area of Bhopal, when there was no development, when there was small development, when there was medium development, when there was sudden development, because suddenly one master plan came and converted the green areas into the land use, residential or the commercial areas. So suddenly you can find out the changes and what are those changes. So I took these 2 examples. There is figure A1, which shows my plot size 40 by 60, and as per bylaws, that is the Bhopal bylaws, the green area should be left as the setback that is open to ground and open to sky. Though it is not mentioned anywhere in the guidelines, but open means open to ground. But actual figure means actual construction is the figure A2, which shows that only 5% of my plot size is green and rest everything is being tiled with very nice paved tiles. The built up area is there, servant room is there, everything is there. Another example of 30 by 50 plot size. In this, the Bhopal building bylaw says that there should be a 3 side open area. The one wall will be the common wall. But the actual built up area is again 85 to 90% of the building and only 5 to 8% of the open area. So what does this mean? This is very good. I think every owner will be happy, every architect will be happy, but the land and the soil below are crying. What happens when this is done? So this is my colony. These are 4,000 plots, and if I follow the guidelines, my colony should be as green as possible, shown in the figure. The purple color is the commercial zone. So these are the things, that is, my colony will be green this much if I follow the setbacks and I keep the open spaces green as shown in the last figure. And what my colony looks like now. So this is the actual development of my colony, having 4,000 plots, where the built up has crossed 85%. The open space is only 10%. That is only because of the gardens, and the road is 20%. So I've already exceeded the bylaws, and my plots are not having that open space which was required, and which the municipal corporations thinks that they have given the setbacks. So my plot will be having 3 side open areas. You can bring any picture and mail it to me, a house having 3 side open spaces, and I will give you a round of applause or a silk in return. But it is very hard to find such a house which is having 4 side open areas, except the 50 by 80 houses which were constructed by the Housing Board or the BDA. Only those houses, rare in the some old city, you can find out these houses having so much open spaces. So what happens with this? Another colony, you can see the difference between the actual development and the guidelines. This is only not following the guidelines. This is my house, simple, having a lawn. Though I've done the rainwater harvesting. So this is 40 by 60 plot, and this is the basic planning. I have taken the same planning for the plots, and I have just taken at least 10 to 12 plots and a road. The road is 12 meters wide. So you can see some houses are having the green areas, that is the green lawn. Some areas which are having the boundary is having the rainwater harvesting, and rest of the houses don't have the rainwater harvesting. Why I'm saying this? Because Bhopal has made compulsory rainwater harvesting in every house, and there should be a some well or some recharge point in the areas. But the total see the total area calculation, road, open area, and now runoff. What runoff I get in my own colony every year in the rainfall is 85% of my water goes in the runoff. Recharge in my colony is 0.6% at present. From 2014 to 2018, it is 0.6%. Evaporation 9%, and soil moisture content is only 0.2%. That is, if in the next 2 to 3 years, if my soil moisture is not being taken care of, my layer of house, my layer of my colony will convert into the deserts. This is what is happening at present in the cities, but we are not taking care of. We are just looking upon the marginal open spaces, the height of the building, the elevation of the building, the vented portion of the building, etc. We are just not taking into consideration the vegetation which we put in the lawn or the open space which we put in the lawn. This is the actual pictures. You can see even the trees are being a part of the things they are suffering from. Now what happens? So now we can come to the conclusions. First correlation, my built up from 1974 to 2013, it is 99% of built up is being constructed. My water level has gone down by 20 meters. In this 40 years, the water level has gone down by 20 meters, though I am having 2 lakes around my houses. That is, one is the Shahpura Lake and one is the Upper Lake. So having 2 lakes near my house within the radius of 5 kilometers, this is the decline in water level due to my construction, not by the Nagar Nigam or this. This is the construction. Left figure shows the 1974 built up, and the right figure shows the 2014 built up. You can see the difference. The red color is the built up. So these are the results. Barren land has reduced by from 70% to 8%. Water body has reduced to 3%. First it was 25%. Green area reduced to 9%, and built up area has increased to 85%. What happens with this? It is that runoff has increased by 65%. Evaporation, infiltration reduced by 80%, and etc. So now let's see why the soil has to be taken into account. Till now, I have not taken any correlation regarding the soil. Now let us see. This is my area, my Google image for my colony. You can see the 2 lakes which I was talking about, and the barren lands which I have marked in the yellow. See the blue and the red graph. The blue shows the built up, and the red shows the runoff. The runoff has suddenly increased from 1991 because the 1991 master plan suddenly changed the land use of these areas, and the geology here is sandstone. So if you see, the geology was not taken into consideration. I will show what are the results due to this sandstone and due to this sudden change in the master plan and the built up in my near my area. This is the Deccan basalt area. I have marked the green space. Here you can see the Deccan basalt is not at all supporting the plan, the construction, because built up is also increasing and the runoff is also increasing. Again, we come to the alluvial soil. Here you can see again 1991 was the starting point where the runoff suddenly increased. This soil supported the urbanization up to a greater extent, but after that it exceeded its carrying capacity. Means its carrying capacity was over, and finally the runoff was generated. Here it is the lake. if I see there is no runoff at all, because the area near the lake is generally green, and you can see though the built up has increased, here the runoff is very less because it is an alluvial soil, and here the rainfall, the rainwater stops for minimum 7 to 8 hours on the ground. This is a new term which I am using, that the rainfall has stopped over the ground for 8 to 9 hours. That means the soil got a lot of time to drink the water. In our own terms, we can say that it got the time to drink the water. And this is the very important chart which shows that sandstone supported the build-up up to some extent. Deccan basalt did at all support the construction. So when I'm having a basalt soil in my area, whether I'm an architect or whether I'm a planner, I can place a cricket ground over it so that it gets more and more chance to remain green. I can make my national park over it. I can make another use of this Deccan basalt so that I can make this area more green and more supportive. Alluvial soil has a very good water holding capacity only when the water is allowed to stay for 9 to 8 hours on this soil. And this is the duty of the architect and the planner, that your building should stop the water near or around the building at least for 7 to 8 hours, which you won't like because it will cause flooding. But if all the architects and all the planners are doing the basic study of this geology and your building, your colony will be having a very good recharge potential, and the soil will be helping not only the built up but the recharge. So this way, the things were this: basalt soil supported, but it generated maximum runoff. For this, I need small open spaces for catching this water. The runoff and the roughness required for this area is 0.4. That means you should plant shrubs and trees over here, not grass. Another catchment which was having alluvial soil, it needed grass and it needed some shrubs and the time span of 8 hours so that the water can be taken into the ground. Sandstone, it was somewhat favorable, but urbanization ultimately took the lead and it failed to catch the water for a very long time. That's why it needs some porous like pebbles or something, land surface, which can make the water go inside very quickly rather than running on the floor. So these are the things. Increase in built up area is more than 60% than the approved limits. That if your Nagar Nigam is saying that there are 4,000 population in the area and the built up is 2700 square kilometers, suppose, it will be always 60% more. You can see your own house and you can calculate. In your approved drawings, the built up area is something and your actual area is something different. So development has already taken the lead, and 60% of the built up is already exceeding than the approved limits. That's why the runoff is exceeding by 75%. Recharge has reduced by 45%, and the urbanization is 25% faster than the planning. So master plans take many years till then the area is developed and we can do nothing. But every area will have a different rate of variation, rate of runoff, rate of this. A detailed study of the specific area is needed along with the population, climate change, water withdrawal, etc. I will not be going to detail into this. So I just took this results of soil, water, land, and I took the master plan of my Bhopal city. I just did some model studies. How can this be used by an architect and the planner? And 40 to 55% of runoff I could save. What I did is I took 20% of my horizontal surface, that is my old horizontal line, and 10% of my vertical surface, and converted it to the rainwater harvesting system only by planting grass and trees. No mechanical thing used. So what happened? These are the models. I used the same land use plan, the same guidelines, the green guidelines, the guidelines for the stormwater drainages, which is being given by the municipal guidelines, the connected green spaces, as much I could do by the green areas, the corridors, near the roads, near the transportation lines. And I did this 5 models for the same land use of Bhopal. And what I got is my first model, which had a connected green path from my colony to another colony and from there to the lake. I reduced the runoff by 65%. The second model, disconnected areas for the sandstone, where the water was flowing, I gave an open space like a cricket field, the water stopped there. So this way I reduced the runoff, resulting runoff was 75%. Natural drainages in my area were allowed with a green path. I reduced the runoff Actual runoff was 85% and the resulting runoff by this was 50%. Model 4, that is intermittent open spaces. In old uh, words, we called it as a khanti or maybe a small pond, which is being made, a man-made pond is made everywhere near the locality, or after every 3 to 4 wards, the ponds are made so that the running water is catch at that place and made to settle it down. And the model 5 was the restoration of the drainage. Many drainages which I have shown in the colony map were concretized, but I again made them into the natural one with a pebble, like the stormwater drainage, sustainable drainage, which Seattle and Washington is using, Australia is using. I just use those models and I reduced the runoff by 35 to 40%. Then I introduced this basalt, sandstone and alluvial soil in my colony and zonal planning as a new table, and the percentage of open space which I need, that is 25%, 35%, 30%, which is matching the guidelines given by the national norms. The same guidelines I have followed. Only I have proposed land cover that my basalt soil should have 15% of the recharge pit with a semi-porous material. Whatever may the material, it may be a small grass or maybe it is shrub or a tree. The moderate porous for sandstone because it has a sandy like nature, so it catches the water very fast. And alluvial having the green and the vegetable and the grass, but time lag of 8 hours. So these I have done. How much built up can be supported? Here I have taken a new turn that if I am having a basalt, then it can support 50% built up area without affecting the carrying capacity. But after that, we need some additional support to be given like a ventilator or an oxygen mask for a COVID patient. So this way I can just correlate that this soil can work without any support by this percentage, maybe near by this. But after this, you have to give some support to your land and some support to your colony for getting the maximum results of the water sensitivity in your own area. If you know about the streams passing out by down, if you're having the bores in your area, if you know that this bore is having water at 40 feet and that bore is having water at 150 feet, so you can have your own discussion in the colony, or you can have, being architects, you can have a forum where you can discuss the water levels of the different areas, and you can come out with some basic landscaping, not a very designed one, but a very basic landscaping, and the soil knowledge can save much of the water without the interruption of the government or without the interruption of the green guidelines. So this way, I just made a small picture of the colony, though actual picture was not available. So I made the alluvial areas, you can see in the picture, the green planning concept, which I called it as a green carpet. So I took the alluvial soil, I made it a green carpet. I took the shrubs and vegetations and put it on the loamy soil. And the Deccan basalt, I made it grass. Similarly, every area which was having different soil, this is the use of the green carpet which I have done. Only I have chosen the soil and the suitable land cover as per the soil, and I got the results 65% better than the existing ones, only by changing the pattern of land cover. Secondly, if architects say that what is the use of doing all these kinds of things, so this is the proposal which I've already given to the Town and Country Planning Department. Like nowadays, you use the transferable development rights, TDR, for which you get the extra built up area, and everyone is very happy to get an extra built up area. So if I give you extra built up area in return of an open space, which is a recharge pit, I think I have named it as the transferable recharge rights. This is the TRR which I am proposing, that give me my open space, like the slogan given by Subhash Chandra Bose, you give me blood and I will give you freedom. So this way I can give you water in return if you give me 1/4 part of your plot, and I can give you extra space of your built up. If you agree for this, the new norms can bring this change, that this area will be open to ground. It will be a rainwater harvesting system which will be working efficiently, and you will be getting allowances for this, maybe some other allowances, subsidies maybe. So this is the thing which can be proposed and which is already under consideration. If these things happens, I think out of 100 people, I think 25 to 30 people will seriously follow this. The rest, I'm not sure. Then we come to the vertical gardens. These are the last part. Nowadays, every country is using the vertical gardens. The city tree is famous in Edinburgh, I have seen. It reduces the pollution and the runoff. So the vertical surfaces, when treated with green, I think your elevation will be natural, and you won't be spending many of the money on it. So why these vertical gardens are being so much in demand nowadays? First of all, they keep your building cool. India needs it. Instead of glass, if we use this, I think it will be more beneficial by using these types of things. Yes, maintenance will be a part, but we can tackle with it, no problem. So I have taken my vertical built up area for my colony, and I found that my vertical built up area was 270% more than my horizontal area. So this was a super bumper lottery for me, that instead of having 24 or 30 acres of land, I was having at least 55 acres of vertical surfaces which I can use. So this is a very good thing which I got from my calculations, that 270% of the built up area was available to me, turn it into green. But practically it is not possible. So I just took 10% of it. Only 10% of my building surfaces, that is the vertical surfaces, and I use the green garden on this 10% of this 270%, and 20% of the horizontal area which I have shown in the roads, near the roads and into my colony with the recharge pits. So what I get is my 10% of vertical surfaces reduced my runoff by 70% and increased my recharge by 60 to 65%. Just by making one wall of my house green, I get this result. So here an architect is very much pretty sure that he can use these things, natural things. Owner will also agree, and the students will not have to do the elevation work in your AutoCAD. By you can simply put the green things and vertical gardens, and the horizontal areas as much as you can keep it as green with the proper land cover. If you want to know what land cover suits on the what soil, I can give you the calculations also, and I have developed the thumb rules. If your soil is geology, this is the thumb rule. If your soil is basalt, this is the thumb rule. I can provide you that also, and by minutes of calculation you can decide which kind of green area on which part of the land you will be keeping it open, though bylaws will be there. But these are the results, and finally the conclusion says that yes, even if you are having a small house construction, kindly do the environmental impact assessment for your small house also, that how much area you are taking from the earth and what are you giving it in return. So when you are buying something, you should give something in return. The subsurface demands some of the concern. So just take the environmental impact assessment into consideration. The built up soil, vegetation, rainfall pattern. You only do it for the climate responsive building, and nowadays it is very easy to put glass everywhere with a sealed one. But if you take the rainfall pattern into consideration for your recharge, I think your building will be much more environmental friendly and sustainable. I can say without any certificate, you will get the water for your whole life. The geological considerations and the green guidelines, whatever is the measure you can follow as an architect, you should make your client agree to what the green guidelines say, and 25 to 30%, I think you have the capacity to make the things as per your green guidelines. The open should be defined very well by the municipalities or the urban guidelines. The open should be open to ground, not only open to sky. It is no use that you give the pavings and everything. An architect should try to bring the natural cycle into planning and into the designing buildings. The last and foremost things, in 1940s when the master plans were made, the motto was the water should go away from the city as soon as possible. But now again we are coming back into the new era, and the slogan for your future planning and the present planning should be catch water where it falls, because before it escapes, catch it. As soon as you see the COVID patient, catch him, quarantine him, and then you are safe. So the same things happen here also, that catch the water, make it FD for you, so that your children and your future generations can use it. And for any other things, you can just ask me, and you can give your maybe suggestions. If something is missing, I can make it another presentation whenever you like. For any queries, you can contact me on my email address. Thank you for listening me for such a long time. I hope it was not boring. So this is now back to Neha.
Thank you, ma'am. We have a lot of questions coming in, so without
Okay.
we'll take them.
Yeah.
So one question was, how good is clayey soil for water recharge?
Clay has the capacity of holding the water 200% more than the basalt. If you see the laboratory results for any soil conditions, the clay is being called as the best water collector. It holds the water for 500 to 1000 years, but it needs time for the water to catch. Once it is catched, the water is stored as a FD for at least 400 to 500 years. The results of many laboratories in Australia, which I have taken into consideration, and the National Institute of Hydrology, they have given a soil chart. You can search for the soil chart and the water holding capacity of different soils. They have, it is being mentioned in every of the hydrology guidelines. You can see them.
Okay.
Hmm.
Does the concept of vertical garden valid for all geographical locations or specifically for plain lands?
All the reasons at present, because there is no city in India which is not lacking lacking in water availability. So vertical gardens not only help your interiors, because the energy conservation has come up with these new norms where you want to cool your building. So green curtain is being the replacement for both, that is cooling your building as well as catching the water. Maybe you don't want to don't want to save it. You have plenty of water in your city, but the runoff generated on the road, like in Mumbai, in 5 minutes of water there is a flood. So to stop that flood also, this vertical garden is very much essential. And it is the new fashion, may be taken out for every city in Dubai, Singapore. Lots of buildings are being constructed in the same way.
Thank you, ma'am. We have a few more questions. I'll just take. Okay, one is, how to increase green cover in existing cities which are already so congested and there's a lot of built up that has already happened. So any strategies to increase the green cover in existing?
Yes, like the TDR has been taken. The transferable development rights have been taken to make the smart cities work. That is, you can make some open spaces available for the government, and in return you can take extra built up. The same thing can be done if you're having your lawn paved. You can, and if you're having some toilet or staircase being constructed, you can replace them with this transferable recharge rights. And if not, if no facilities be given, you can do it by yourself, that in the next coming Diwali you can just remove the paved tiles and plant grass in that area with some pebbles. That will be a minor change for the sustainability, because water is not seen and hence nobody knows that water is not there. It is an invisible part, but if you do.
Ma'am? Yeah.
So I am Jasleen from Chitkara University. I've done my master's from Australia, Perth, from University of Western
Yes,
Australia in planning.
okay.
Oh, like as we've been talking about water and the problems which are coming with water and what is going to happen with the crisis of corona. I want to ask you in regarding of drainage and water, the water we're using, how planning can help in this crisis. Like I live in Chandigarh, and if I see the difference between Chandigarh and Delhi or Mumbai, so Delhi and Mumbai is suffering because of their planning, I feel, because there are a lot of people in less square feet area. And even if we compare the villages of India, the rural India to urban India, so rural area is less affected and urban area is more affected to corona.
Yes.
Can you put a little light on it?
You yourself have given the answer, because Chandigarh is a planned city, and if you will be surprised that
rural, the rural areas are not planned.
But rural areas don't have this much of population. You can see the population graph in the cities. It is the density is increasing day by day. And if you see that Mumbai is not having any planner at present right now to plan the Mumbai city. Mumbai city was just developed before the planning was done haphazardly. And we need to reschedule and redesign some parts which are very much affected by these things.
So, exactly, ma'am. As a planner, I feel because Mumbai, Dharavi, these places are very affected, and also just not corona, but also waterborne diseases. These areas are also most affected by these diseases also.
Yes, definitely. There are some cities which are not out of our control at present. But if we take integrated measures with the help of the government and the public, in the spaces. I think there is solution. There is no such thing that there is no solution for these problems. Solutions are there. We need to tackle one by one, not all at once. Like lockdown is not as only the solution. Like for COVID, lockdown is not only the solution. There are other safety measures also. So this way, even sustainable drainage and sustainable urban planning will need integrated measures.
Ma'am, moving on. Should Indian bylaws also adopt something similar to leaf area index as done in Singapore?
Singapore has done, because Singapore has to purchase water from, at least I think it is taking water from Malaysia and other countries. So the strategy is different over there, and that's why they have come up with the master plan of the gardens. Now Singapore is known as the garden city, but their strategy is different. Some part of the strategies can be incorporated, but we have good green guidelines. Only the implementation part and the integration of the green guidelines by the town planners and by the town and country planning department in the master plan is missing, or not up to that percentage which is required.
Thank you, ma'am. I hope most of the questions are answered by from the participants.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, ma'am. Now, may I please invite our guest of honor, Architect Vidyadhar Wodiyar, sir, to share his valuable insights. May I have you, please, sir?
Yes, madam. Dr. Sheetal Sharma ji has really given a very good informative lecture, and it will definitely enlighten all the young architects and town planners to follow in their career. I would like to say that the water is such an important element in our life. From our earlier civilization of Mohenjo-daro and Harappa, Mesopotamia, etc.,
Yes.
all human settlements were near to the water bodies. Reasons may be to meet the daily needs for self-reliance, say for agriculture, culture, farming, fishing, etc., and also in some cases for defense purpose,
Yes.
and also as a trade port. And today, high-end villas, clubhouse, apartments, and classified into a top class only if they have infinity pools.
Pools, yes.
So, the sad state of affair is today that we have neglected the real issue of survival by
Yes.
being with the nature without harming the water bodies and the microclimate. See, this is the issue which we had to, and that is what you have explained all through. And I think we have to concentrate on that. Then
Yes,
the
sir.
water sensitive urban design and planning integrates the urban water cycle, water supply, wastewater, stormwater, and groundwater management with spatial and urban design.
Yes.
This approach contributes to sustainability and livability, particularly when considered part of an overall urban strategy, which I think you explained in detail. This has been very well explained through upon sensitive issues elaborately.
Yes.
The challenges, development challenges for water management of cities are classified into 7 important aspects, which you have explained. One is economic development, second is climatic change, third is energy use, fourth is population growth and urbanization, which you explained. By 2030, India is going to have around 68 cities which will have more than 1 million population. So the problem will increase. Then energy and technologies, deterioration of infrastructure, then public behavior and attitude, which I think you told that every individual, if he considers himself as responsible, so that makes a lot of sense. And your idea of, I was aware of TDR as a planner, architect planner, but the CRR is a good new concept which you have brought in. I think it can be adopted and if need be enforced also.
Yes.
And I also appreciate the detailed case study of Bhopal. It's very informative and it gives an insight to the young architects and planners how their approach to design or master plan has to be. This is what we architects and planners to consider while planning a city, or an architect when they are designing a building. And I think to add up to your thing, Ministry of Housing and Urban Affairs and the Center for Science and Environment has published one guidelines, which is water sensitive urban design and planning guidelines.
Yes.
Which I think you have explained in detail.
Yes.
For those of the students or academicians who are interested, they can get into the details where it is further elaborated.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, madam. It was really very informative, and
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you.
There are guidelines, but only the thing is that master plan should take these guidelines so that the architects and the planners are forced to use them.
Yeah. This Aditya School of Architecture for giving me an opportunity to be on this platform. Thank you very much.
Our honor, sir. Thank you. We also have with us architect Vijay Garg, sir. May I please have you, sir, to share a few words? Architect Vijay Garg, sir.
Hello.
Yes.
Can you hear?
Good evening, sir.
Good evening, sir.
So, good evening, everyone. And thank you. I just logged in to see this wonderful presentation by Dr. Sheetal Sharma. I'm really impressed the way she has explained the water and the use of water and how we can do water conservation through normal, not water harvesting. Right? Most of the people think only by creating water pits you can do water conservation. You can do water conservation or water harvesting by many other means. And being a responsible citizen, she is already, what can we do to make water properly used for every one of us. I'm sure participants would have been more enlightened after this talk. And it is definitely too interesting when Vidya is summing up this and explaining the use of urban planning and water and use in how our architects can contribute and how the younger generation can contribute in making a better road for every one of us if we act as responsible citizens. I'm sure what Sheetal has done is a great presentation. I must compliment her on the way she has presented. And I'm myself as saying that I have gained some knowledge out of this talk, and I'm more knowledgeable after this, listening to this talk. And I'm sure all of us are more benefited. Thank you very much. And I just don't want to make a speech. I just want to compliment Aditya for getting good speakers, and Sheetal for making good presentation, and my dear friend Vidya for very well summing it up and teaching the future generation the importance of water and planning. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for joining us. Now, may I please have our Director, Dr. K.N. Ganesh Babu, sir, for the concluding address. Over to you, sir.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Dr. Sheetal, madam. That was a wonderful presentation.
Thank you, sir.
And first and foremost, I should thank Architect Vijay Garg, sir, for giving me this contact and directing me here. Indirect appreciation goes to AAAD, but direct appreciation goes to Vijay Garg, sir. Thank you, sir, for the link and for your words of wisdom. I thank Architect Vidyadhar Odayar, sir, for accepting to be here and sharing his wonderful words. Madam, your presentation not only covered urban planning, it has also covered urban design, conservation, landscape architecture, to some extent habitat design also. Almost all parts of masters you have covered in your presentation for a sustainable globe. I think that gives a lot of avenue for our students to look into their future. I thank you and all the guests present here, and I also thank all the spectators all across the country and the special invitees of Madam's college students and the students from other colleges for taking this platform and spending their valuable 1 hour in the evening today. I would like to reinforce that our sessions will happen on every Thursdays and Fridays till or even after the pandemic, as long as we are supported with your audience. Thanks for being with us, and over to you, Neha, for the conclusion. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
With this, we come to the end of the session. Before I proceed with the vote of thanks, we just want to take a moment and pay our endless gratitude to all the frontline workers and healthcare workers for their self-sacrificing commitment, unwavering responsibility, and courage amidst the crisis. All of us at AAAD are grateful to all the people who are risking their lives and working tirelessly to help our community stay safe. Let us thank the Almighty for giving us strength and keeping us safe from the time of this pandemic. It's an honor to propose a vote of thanks in the presence of such esteemed guests. Thank you, Dr. Architect Sheetal Sharma, for accepting our invitation to share your invaluable inputs towards water-sensitive planning. It's high time architects and planners understand the need to provide maximum surface for water infiltration and also soil-specific approach for managing runoff. I thank our guest of honor, Architect Gadadhar S. Wodiyar, sir, for joining us today. You have been a mentor and a guide to our this is always motivating. Thank you, Architect Senthil and Architect Santosh, coordinator, and Architect Harshita, our broadcast coordinator, for ensuring that the webinar series continues smoothly. I would like to especially thank our director, Dr. K.N. Ganesh Babu, sir, for being the catalyst in the constant improvements and achievements of our institution. I also thank the management of Aditya Group of Institutions for extending their support always. I thank all the delegates and esteemed member of the architectural fraternity who joined us today. Thank you for encouraging us, and we hope for a continued association for all our upcoming webinars. With this, we conclude today's session. We will continue to present eminent speakers to you every Thursday and Friday at 5 p.m. Stay tuned. Thank you and stay safe. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you.